Interim Director of Athletics, Jerry Bovee, joining us here on the program this afternoon. And busy night, busy weekend, and it's been a very busy week and a half for Jerry as well. Jerry, thanks for your time today.
Pleasure. It's good to be with you, Eric and Jason. And yes, you're right. It's always busy. There's never a dull moment in athletics, so it's just what we've come to expect, and it's part of our life.
So, I mean, John Hartwell moves on in the fall, and you're running the show and acting as the director of athletics. And I mean, there's been no shortage of big decisions to be made while you're in the interim chair, but perhaps none bigger than what just happened with finding a new basketball coach. What was that process like for you, and just what experiences have you had before in finding a new head coach at a pretty premier sport that's under your purview?
Yeah, I mean, this was a first at the FBS level for sure, being directly over that process. At Weber State, I had some wild rides there. I hired 4 football coaches in the span of about 18 months after Coach McBride stepped down, and we went through the John L. Smith experience and all that. But this is my first head men's basketball coach. But the process really is nearly similar. I mean, it's very similar to what I've experienced. Over my time, I've probably hired 15 coaches. So it wasn't something I looked at. I mean, certainly the pressure's on in every hire if you're taking your job serious. But, this was a little different in an interim role. I have been in an interim role at Weber when I first started there, so certainly understand that process. It wasn't quite this long, but honestly, if you just take each day and get what you need to get done and keep moving forward, it all starts to cluster together. But this was a great experience. The first thing, I think, for me was the interest in the job. It was, at the time our job came online, there were only a few other jobs at the FBS level that would have been considered better jobs. I mean, by some. I think this is a great job. But, you had a couple of Power 5 jobs out there, and they all kind of got solved. And so at some point there in our process, we were the best job going, and I think that also raised the level of interest from prospective coaches.
You kind of take us behind the door a little bit as far as finding a new head coach, because you mentioned people show interest, but when you walk out of the room with Ryan Odom and he says he's leaving, like, do you reach out to other coaches, or is it mostly exclusively you picking through applications and looking for the best hires?
Yeah, it's a little different than hiring a window worker at a fast food restaurant for sure. Your time initially is spent trying to keep your coach. And as Ryan and I were talking over that last week, he had a lot of irons in the fire and people chasing after him. And so, the focus was there. Once it was determined that he was moving and he kind of announced it and it was final, then you go to the next step. And in our case, felt like it was important not to use a search firm. I didn't feel like it was needed. There was enough interest that was going to be out there. So I went to my contacts. I mean, I first put my own list together of coaches that I'd been watching and you just do. The network is smaller than you'd think in our business. There's only 130 Division I FBS schools, and so invariably you get your way around and kind of meet a lot of people over time. And I had a list together pretty quick of coaches I was interested in. And then you start working with agents that are repping their prospective coaches. I mean, this whole notion of, hey, I'm going to go get the guy I want, it's really impossible to do that if they're not interested, obviously. So you got to find a nice balance between those that you're interested in and those that are interested in you, and you hope that your list meshes with those that are interested in you so you can get off and run with it. We probably had 20 coaches around the country that either we were interested in talking to or had expressed interest through third parties, and so that began to develop a list that you start to work through in your interview process. Sorry, I didn't quite finish that sentence, but that's kind of the process we started with, or I started with.
So what was it about Coach Sprinkle that you really felt like stood out and ultimately pushed him to the top of the list ahead of everybody else?
Well, the nice thing that we had going on was this happened right near the Final Four. So the NABC holds meetings at the Final Four for all coaches. So you've got assistants and head coaches I believe they stayed at the Hilton in downtown Houston, which I did not want to stay at the Hilton and have everybody, trying to get to me. You lose time quickly by doing that. So I stayed off-site and had coaches come to me. And over the course of those 3 days, I probably met with 12 coaches, 3 or 4 were assistants, a few at the Power 5 level, and then, the rest that were just head coaches in the FBS Group of 5 or FCS type of institution, and started the process just interviewing an hour and a half to 2 hours with each one and getting into everything from what kind of offense they run, defense they run, to personnel, to coaching staff. I mean, you just get into it, start having in-depth conversations. Early on in my meeting with Danny and then subsequent meetings, it just worked. It was his alignment of his philosophy of basketball aligned with what we were looking for at Utah State, the kind of student athlete that he wanted to bring in and had ties to, his recruiting base and contacts. It all started to align. And then when he started to talk a lot more about what Utah State was, what his perceptions of Utah State were, I was amazed at how much he knew. I mean, I knew that he had played here when he played at Montana State, that he had coached here in the Big West, but just to get a feel for his feelings about our culture and what was important to our fan base, it just started to mesh. And we had the opportunity to meet 3 different times in that 3-day period. I'm a big believer in getting coaches to campus to see what we have, and there's a process for me in interviewing coaches and really all staff, but in particular coaches, and the things just lined up that he emerged very clearly in my mind as the top choice.
So obviously, Danny's been here for, I believe it's pretty much exactly a week now, because I think we had the press conference a week ago. I know you're obviously busy with the stuff you're doing, but what have you had a chance to observe about, Coach Sprinkle as he's worked for about a week, trying to get this program up and running again?
Yeah, I mean, we made the announcement last Friday, and then we had the press conference on Monday. So and then he had to get back home, get a few things together, and come back. He and his assistants drove down Wednesday. So, he's been here in the offices for a couple days, and it's been good. There's a lot to do. He's been meeting with players. He's been talking to those that are in the portal, both from Utah State looking at other options and those in the portal that might be interested in Utah State. So it's been, we've talked a lot about where we're going and what's coming and going, and there's a lot to do right now. He's got to do a lot of rebuilding with the seniors that we lost and a few that are likely going in the portal. There's a lot to do, but my initial thoughts are great. I mean, he's doing the things that we need him to do to get our program ready to go, and we expect to be competitive.
We're talking to Interim Director of Athletics, Jerry Bovee, and besides that, I mean, I know you've got a busy week this week with the Hall of Fame induction ceremony taking place tomorrow, but also a really neat event that's going to be taking place tonight, kind of a celebration of Title IX and just all the great women that have come through Utah State athletics, either as players or coaches. I guess just quickly, briefly walk us through everything that's going on tonight and tomorrow.
Yeah, tonight's going to be a unique event down at the Riverwoods where we'll have a meal, and we're just there'll be a few panels, a few different speeches. It's an opportunity to celebrate with our Hall of Fame inductees this weekend, really the benefits of women in sport. It's been 50 years since Title IX was enacted, and really it's been 50 years since Utah State got into the game of women's athletics full tilt. And so to be able to talk about those stories, those opportunities, it was very difficult early for these women. They're all pioneers. To be able to kind of crack through what was a system that was set up for men. And, they've been able to bust that wall down. And honestly, I mean, I have a daughter. I'm grateful for the opportunities that women have to participate in sports, because the statistics of their participation the benefits far outweigh anything else. You can go down the line of all the studies that have been done for what sport does for women, and they're different outcomes than men in a lot of cases. Women that play sports are less apt to be abused in any form or fashion. They're more apt to be in leadership roles in their employment and in management, and the list goes on and on. So we're going to celebrate that tonight, and we're going to raise some money that will benefit women in sport at Utah State. We're going to talk about it. We're going to learn about the past, and we're going to make plans to be better in the future. And so it'll be an exciting night tonight. And then tomorrow night with an all-women's induction class into our Utah State Athletics Hall of Fame will be an exceptional event up on campus as well.
So I know I believe there's 7 inductees into this class, and one that I was kind of particularly interested in because I just kind of started looking into the past and learning about some of these women. One in particular, Marilyn Weiss, who was kind of that, I don't know if she was the first director of athletics, director of women's athletics. And it seemed like she really was one of those pioneers in that she basically started a lot of the programs, and 2 of those that won national titles. I don't know if you've had a chance to, learn yourself about, her accomplishments and get to know her a little bit. Just, I guess, tell us anything you've learned about her in these last few weeks.
I have, Jason. In fact, I had the opportunity because we had just gone through the process with our Hall of Fame committee of choosing the class when the transition happened with John leaving. And so I had the opportunity and fun to call all of these ladies to give them the news about the Hall of Fame. And Marilyn and I had a chance to talk then. Today I visited with her as she was doing some video shoots and different things that we have planned for tomorrow night, and it was a great opportunity to hear some of her stories and experiences. She talked a lot about just trying to get the program started from scratch and finding athletes and finding coaches, hiring a 23-year-old coach to coach an athlete that was 27, and that dynamic. The things that she had to do, she is a pioneer, and this is exciting for us after all these years to be able to honor her for her accomplishments. And, it took a lot of stubbornness and a will to do this at that time because there were a lot that didn't believe in it. There's still a lot of people that don't believe in it, frankly. And she broke down a lot of walls, had the courage and strength to just keep fighting. And she's very deserving of our Hall of Fame, and you'll get to hear some more stories over the weekend about Marilyn and what she did in her role administratively, as well as coaching.
Last question for me, because I know you're short on time. You got a big event coming up tonight, but the Utah State football team is going to be holding their spring blue-white scrimmage coming up next Saturday, not tomorrow, but next Saturday. And for folks who haven't been in the stadium for a little while, there's some changes going on there. There's some construction going on in that south end zone. What's the process been like? Can you provide any update on what's been going on down there?
Yeah, we're there. The group is working hard from Raymond Construction to get that done for the season. That the restroom that was over in that southeast corner has been torn down. We're widening the egress points that get you toward the student section. That's a bottleneck that's been a challenge for us as far as fan safety and just the overall game day experience. So that's being widened. New bathrooms will go in there, and then there will be a platform on top of those bathrooms where we can set up events during the game, larger events for folks to, we'll still work out whether we're going to rent that out or how that'll go, but we'll have conference space over there or meeting space where we could do small group events in that corner of the stadiums. It's really a work to improve the fan experience, to improve the restrooms. You got to have that at a game, and they need to be accessible and easy to get into. So I think little by little, as we continue to make changes, it's all geared toward helping our fans have a better experience and easier to get in and out of games.
So just one final question for me as well. I know this is a topic that can be kind of tricky to answer as far as what you can actually say. But no, NIL has been a huge topic in college sports, especially right now. It's the off season and recruiting and all that. But I know Utah State has their new collective, and just wondering how all that kind of works with the university and just kind of your thoughts on how it's impacted, athletics, especially at Utah State.
Yeah, certainly impacted our sport nationwide. It's changed the recruiting process for a lot of teams. It's caused a lot of institutions to self-reflect on what their mission is and who they want to be. And, there's really two prongs to this. There's the NIL prong, which I think no one would refute, the opportunity for student athletes to benefit on their name, image, and likeness, to be spokesmen and women for different businesses, or to simply sell their opportunity to an event, whether it's autograph sessions or video sessions that almost like a celebrity event. That to me should have always been the opportunity for our student athletes. And so in some respects we missed and have for years on that. Then you've got the other side where groups can come in, raise money, and actually give that money to student athletes in return, either for them to promote the collective or connect with other businesses that the collective is partnered with to receive resources. And those are the things nationwide that, some have an angst with, or they question what it's done to our sport. I do anticipate we'll have some national or federal legislation that should be coming. Charlie Baker, our new president of the NCAA, is coming out of politics to do this job, and will spend an enormous amount of his time in Washington, D.C., and we're hopeful that we can get some semblance to this madness so that we can get kind of back into what the market should be bearing rather than false money that's not market-based. So there are some challenges right now. We're trying to get in the game and do what's best for our student athletes without getting outside of what we believe this ought to all be about in intercollegiate athletics. But it's difficult because you have teams in your own league that might have different philosophies that are given more money. I would say that it doesn't necessarily always lead to success. Sometimes it creates more dysfunction in the locker room. So I think just because we see other teams doing things, we should hold back a little bit of judgment to think that we're behind when those teams that might be paying the most aren't necessarily performing at least out of the gates in this process. We feel pretty good about where we're at. We're going to continue to push it. As far as the collective goes, we do have interaction there and we can promote it, but we can't be directly involved with it. So everyone in our department's learning what their role is to continue to support it and help it grow to the betterment of our program, while still raising money for all the other needs that we have.
Well, Coach, sorry, that's a standard.
Okay. Coach,
I almost said that too.
Coaches, right?
Jerry Bovee, Interim Director of Athletics. I know you're a busy guy. You got a really special event tonight, and certainly a really neat event tomorrow as well. Best of luck with everything going on there, and thanks for the updates, and hopefully we can
my pleasure.
catch up with you again
Thanks
soon.
for having me on.
All right, thanks, Jerry.